Facebook, what's up? I'm getting tuned up here. Getting tuned up. Just getting Instagram Live going. I think. I don't know why Instagram wants to do this to me. Hang tight, guys. We're going to be going live with Dr. Ryan Lowery. So, guys, I'm going over to Clubhouse right now. We're getting started. We're going to be interviewing Dr. Ryan Lowery on exogenous ketones, what they are and what they aren't. So, give you guys a little check-in on what it looks like over here on Clubhouse. Let me make sure I'm going from a different device here. So, this is kind of the back end of getting started. So, let me see. Taking a second to connect here. We're going to be bringing Dr. Ryan Lowery on. We're going to be talking about exogenous ketones, what they are and what they aren't. If you guys want to know who Dr. Ryan Lowery is, hang tight. But he is definitely he's an amazing gentleman with a big heart. He is from ASPI Labs in Tampa. I don't know if you guys know where that is. Hopefully this thing will crank up here. Okay, here we go. Go here. We want to go there. We go here. So we're live right now on Clubhouse. If you guys have never seen it before, there's what it looks like. That's what we're doing. Nobody's in the room yet, so we'll just give it a few minutes to build up. It's kind of like anything else on here, right? Cameron, how you doing? Dr. Ryan, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing absolutely amazing. Thanks for joining us today. I just thought this would be a really great topic. I've had a lot of questions here lately about the exogenous ketones, what they are and what they aren't. So I'm just going to see if I can get Judith here. If we can ping her in here to open up this room. Thank you, Dr. Ryan, for always being generous with your time, pouring into our community here, Keto for the Soul. For you guys that are not following the club, which I guess you would have to be at this point if you're in this room, because it's not open to the public quite yet, I don't think. You guys try to ping some people maybe. But Keto for the Soul has been an amazing Clubhouse experience for myself. It's been absolutely a blessing to have a community, right? Through Prove It in the community that I'm with, we have an amazing community. However, it's tough to get everybody together to actually collaborate, come together and join up like Clubhouse has given us the opportunity here. So it's been great to be able to do that. And Dr. Ryan, what I want to do is just would like for you, I'll introduce you here in just a second, but just tell people really, where you've come from, who you are. I really want to know more about ASPI, what you guys are doing over there in Tampa. For you guys that don't know Dr. Ryan Lowery yet, which I think most everybody does here, he is an amazing gentleman that leads with a servant heart, right? Just loves to give back, loves to educate others, loves the ketogenic lifestyle. I believe he's been doing the ketogenic lifestyle for about 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. And him and Dr. Jacob Wilson are partners at ASPI Labs, and they just have so much knowledge to give and love coming on here and educating others. For you guys that are here with Keto for the Soul, you know how much time he provides here. You know how much value he gives to the community, and which is a blessing to us. So thank you all for joining. I see everybody down there in the audience. Thank you for coming in. And what we're going to be talking about today with Dr. Ryan is exogenous ketones, what they are and what they aren't. How we're going to run this is, I'm just going to get a little background of Dr. Ryan here for a few minutes, and then we will open up the stage for questions. So Dr. Ryan, can you give us a little background about Aspie Labs there and what you guys are doing?
Sure. It's an honor to be here. Super excited about the topic. So my business partner, Dr. Jacob Wilson, and I, we created ASPI, the Applied Science Performance Institute, about 5 years ago, with a mission to bridge the gap between science and practical application. And I think there's this big gap. And a lot of it is, well, there's this hardcore science, which is absolutely fantastic. It's great. I love science. But it often gets talked at this ridiculously complicated level that no one can understand and ultimately has no practical use then. So that's a problem. And so we're like, how do we bridge that gap? So we ventured out of academia, created our own institute called ASPI, where we research everything from some of the top athletes in the world, some of the top execs in the world, from people like Tony Robbins, to some of the top, like we're working with Tom Brady's crew right now on some cool new projects focused on like recovery for NFL athletes and longevity, but everything all the way to people with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and traumatic brain injury, which is where a big passion of mine is. So it's a really amazing facility. If you're ever in Tampa, shoot me a DM. I would love to give you a tour if you're ever around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to do that. I'm going to be in Tampa here pretty soon, so I will get with you. I'll DM you, and I'd love to come check out the facility. I love what you guys are doing there. For people that may not know much about Dr. Ryan, how did you get started in the ketogenic lifestyle, and what kind of built a passion in you for this lifestyle?
Yeah, I think everyone's got an amazing story. For me, my story started with my grandmother. She passed away in her early 60s, way too young. The Italian grandmother, who I always tell everyone she used to cook for an army, literally used to make more food for every single neighbor on the street. And that's where I got my giving heart from, because I just take that after her. And because of that, she didn't make great food choices, but she also didn't make great lifestyle choices. She was a smoker, but just ate a lot of carbs, a lot of Italian foods, had heart complications, type 2 diabetes, severely overweight, and unexpectedly, it was just one weekend I was with her, and then next weekend she was in the hospital and died within 8 hours of being in the hospital after suffering a major heart attack. And that hit my family pretty hard, because, grandma's the rock of the entire family. And so that kind of set my journey to say, I don't want people to suffer and go through that same kind of tragedy that I had to go through. And what if someone could reach out and make one small change, one small recommendation from a nutritional standpoint? What impact could that have had on my grandmother at the time? And so I set out, went to University of Tampa. That's where I met Dr. Jacob Wilson, started studying a whole bunch of stuff, not even keto originally, but really found out about keto from a good friend of ours, Dr. Dom D'Agostino, who was studying it for the Navy and Navy SEAL divers, looking at oxygen toxicity seizures. And for us, we were like, can you gain muscle on a ketogenic diet? And at the time, I was a athlete. I was playing baseball at University of Tampa. I always was taught you need to eat a ton of carbohydrates to gain any sort of muscle, or else you're going to shrivel up like a raisin if you do not have any carbohydrates or insulin. So I said, screw it. I'm going to try this myself. And I started keto. There were zero resources. Clubhouse wasn't even a thought at the time. There was nothing available other than just hey, it's bacon, butter, and eggs. So for me, I drank heavy whipping cream. Used to make keto mousse, which is ridiculously good, but it also is 4,000 calories per serving, and I had that probably about 3 times a day. So I struggled for 3 months, gained a ton of weight, and I was like, this sucks. This is awful. Every terrible byproduct of keto that you can ever imagine, I experienced until I started figuring things out, and that kind of led to the journey of 10 years later. We're here today.
Man, yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Thank you for giving a little bit of background there. And, most people here are either just beginning their keto journey or have done keto for a long time. We all have different experiences. So in this keto lifestyle, uh, can you give me a little bit of background on the exogenous ketones? I think that's a new conversation right now. It's not new, but you're hearing it more and more. And, where would an exogenous ketone fit in somebody's ketogenic lifestyle?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. I'll start with where did exogenous ketones come from? So to your point, they're not new. They were studied in the 1940s. First study ever on infusing ketones actually found that, believe it or not, ketones helped improve bull sperm motility. And for those of you that know, like bull and cattle, like that's very important. That can make people a lot of money. So that's interesting. I know a lot of guys are like, wow, I do not want to have ketones anymore because I'm done having kids. But no, that was the first study that was ever done. And then fast forward to the 1990s, a great researcher was looking at them for its effect on the heart. They were looking at animals. If you infuse ketones into the heart, they found that it made it more efficient. And it was actually one of the students, if you guys know the Krebs cycle, Hans Krebs, one of his students, was one of the original founders of like exogenous ketones, and he's the one in the 1990s who was looking at being in ketosis helped improve the efficiency of the heart. Fast forward, no one knew how to commercialize them or bring them to market or what the hell they are, and that's the point of this room today, is kind of unpacking like what they are and what they are not. So it took a while to figure out like how do you make these things available, not as a complete replacement to other lifestyle interventions, but as a tool and as something that could put someone into a technical state of ketosis and potentially reap the benefits that even they were studying in the 1990s, and that we know a lot more today, and we still have a lot more to uncover and explore. But that's kind of the story of a little background on exogenous ketones.
Yeah, and I think we do see them all over the marketplace today, and they are out there. And the one question I get a lot is are all ketones created equally? I have people that say, well, I'm using this ketone or I'm using that ketone, and I don't know a whole lot about other ketones. I know about the proven ketones that we utilize, Keto Nat, and I really know what they do for myself and what I've been able to help thousands of people do. Can you give us, unpack that a little bit, the difference between ketones? Are they all created the same?
Absolutely not. They aren't. So Richard Beach is the researcher's name. Sadly, he's passed away since, but I got a chance to meet him. He was the first one to really look at this between ketones. And again, this was dating back to the 1990s, where they knew there was a difference between different sources of ketones. Now, let me explain this in a way that people will be able to comprehend. Like, there's something called isomers. And the way you look at it is if you hold your hands up in front of you, if you're sitting at your desk or standing, you hold your hands up in front of you, and your hands are basically mirror images of one another, right? They look the same, but they're basically a mirror image of one another. But if you put them over each other, they wouldn't match up, right? That's what isomers are. They're mirror images of one another, but they're not the exact same. And so with ketones, there's a D form, or it's also known as the R form, D or R, or there's the L or S form. So there are different nomenclatures for it. So there's a left form and a right form. That's a way to think of it. The left form, you can consider the L-BHB. The right form is R or D-BHB. Now, the cells in our body, just like every other isomer, and guess what? Ketones aren't the only things that have isomers. Amino acids have isomers. If you've ever taken an amino acid supplement, you've seen them say L-leucine. It's not just leucine. People say L-leucine. And with amino acids, the left hand or the left form is the bioavailable form that our bodies take up and utilize. 0 companies that are out on the market or 0 products use R-leucine. It's non-bioavailable, has 0 benefit whatsoever, right? When it comes to ketones, it's the exact opposite. The R form or the D form is the actual bioavailable form that gets taken up and utilized. The L form does absolutely nothing, right? In fact, it could actually have counter effects to the actual bioavailable form by blocking receptor site. So there are a lot of differences. 99% of companies that are out on the market today that are marketing ketones are either or and using an ineffective dosage, where, i.e. all of the keto pill nonsense that's out there, all of those are going to do nothing but burn a hole in your pocket. It's terrible. I field questions about that all the time, and I'm sure we'll dig into it. Or they use a mix. And even if you're using 5 grams of ketones and say it's a mixture of that left and right hands, the D and L form, even at a 50-50 ratio, you're only getting 2.5 grams of the actual bioavailable isomer. And I argue, and we've seen this in our research when we've tested it, you're not only just getting, you're actually getting less than 2.5 grams, because the L is competing for the same binding sites in your cells as the D form. So the active form can't do what it's going to do. Imagine going to open up your door, and you're going to open up your door to unlock it to go inside of your house, but there's a key that's stuck inside of the door, and your key that that opens up the damn door can't fit in because there's something blocking that site or that key. That's what's going on here, and that's why I think majority of them are just absolute nonsense.
Yeah, thank you for that. And let's unpack that for a minute. Everybody, the Shark Tank thing and the pills and hey, grab this, grab that, this works, that works. And you talk about, the marketing of it. Unpack that a little bit, because I know you have a big undertaking with trying to stop the Shark Tank pills. I hear it all the time, like, oh, I got these pills, I got those pills. Like, can we dig a little bit deeper into that and why something like that may not be what people want to be utilizing?
Absolutely. And it's absolutely not what you should be utilizing. It's funny because, and sad at the same time, because I've been very outspoken on this keto pill scam. And they're very well aware of it. They've targeted our company multiple times. They're now using my face to try and promote their product, even though I'm one of the biggest advocates against, or outspoken against what they're doing. But let me just put this in perspective so you understand how crazy this is. I've reached out to lawyers and everything to try, because this is like literally class actionable. The Shark Tank lawyers, I'm in contact with them. They cannot figure out who these companies are. They're like the best of the best lawyers. And so it's like, now I'm on this all out front. Like, you can't take them down. You need to out educate them. So we need to just be louder on education to try and save people, because still to this day, the video that I posted gets comments every single day of people who have gotten scammed from it. And it's sad. It's super sad, because they're not cheap. These things are like $100 a bottle. And to put it in perspective, inside of this bottle, right, that they claim are these pills that can help you lose 20 pounds in 20 hours, right? Just some ridiculous claims. But inside of these pills, again, going back to what I just talked about, every pill has 200 milligrams of DL, the mixture of BHB. And in one of the videos, I did the calculation of how many pills you would need to consume to get an effective form and to get an effective dose of BHB. And the reality is you would need to consume the entire bottle. So one entire bottle, $100 to get like 4 grams of active BHB. Now, that's ridiculous. They're basically charging $100 for a 4-gram dosage, and people are buying it like crazy. But the other problem is no one's going to be able to stomach an entire bottle of pills. It's very, very sad, and a lot of people are losing money and absolutely getting zero benefit whatsoever from it.
Yeah, and I believe that's highway robbery, right? And that's really why I wanted to bring this, conversation to light. And it's funny because sometimes we talk about exogenous ketones, and people sweep it under the rug. But I can tell you what, like that's how I started my journey, and I can thankfully say that God aligned me in the right place at the right time for the right reasons. Because once I found out what these exogenous ketones did for me, it led me into the ketogenic lifestyle. So that being said, where do you see it taking place in the people's ketogenic lifestyle? Or is there any benefits if you want to utilize these ketones and you don't want to do a ketogenic lifestyle?
Yeah, great question. So one, I think one of the most obvious that I've seen a lot of is very similar to your experience. I think a lot of people are afraid to embark on a ketogenic diet, have no idea where to start. They try exogenous ketones and they feel amazing. And it's a transition into, let me just make this a lifestyle. I think that's absolutely incredible. They experience this boost of ketones. They're like, let me continue to do this through diet and then utilize ketones strategically for other reasons. The second part to your question is, are there benefits to exogenous ketones if you're not on a ketogenic diet? The answer is yes, but with context, right? I think one of the biggest misconceptions is if I have exogenous ketones and I go and eat a Big Mac and have a large soda and a large fry, I'm going to instantly lose 10 pounds. That's not how exogenous ketones work. But exogenous ketones, even if you're not eating a ketogenic diet, there's plenty of benefits. One, there's studies showing it helps suppress appetite. I think that's a problem that's plaguing the majority of the world right now. I think people are snacking like crazy. Even getting a small amount of ketones into the brain and being in a state of ketosis helps blunt appetite. So theoretically, over the course of the day, you're going to be eating less calories, ultimately having great benefits on body composition, right? There are also benefits for the brain, right? I'll give you a perfect example. My grandfather is all Italian. He does not eat a ketogenic diet as much as I would love him to. He's 78 years old. He's going to have his pasta and bread, but he drinks exogenous ketones and he feels better because of it. He remembers more things. Why? Is because his brain is at a point where it's becoming more and more insulin resistant. He's forgetting things. He's forgetting where he put his keys, and he's forgetting times and dates. But that's because his brain's becoming more and more insulin resistant. Yet his brain can still take up and utilize ketones as a fuel source. So that's another aspect where I see a lot of potential and a lot of people applying exogenous ketones is in this area of wanting better focus, better cognitive awareness. And that can happen even without the context of a ketogenic diet with exogenous ketones. And the way I explain this to people in the simplest form is imagine stairs. Someone who's looking to get cognitive benefit or really looking to optimize their performance at a certain level. I think at that bottom stair, I think just literally doing nothing else but taking exogenous ketones can get you on that first stair. You're providing a new source of fuel. It's potentially blunting appetite. It could be having effects on other things. Ketones are a signaling molecule, and I won't go too sciencey into that. But just talking purely about the appetite and the better source of fuel for the brain, you just took one step up on the ladder. Step two would be, all right, cool, you're incorporating in exogenous ketones, and you've now switched to what I would say even becoming more carb conscious, ideally being on a well-formulated ketogenic diet. You are now on the second stair. You're going to see way better results. That third stair is like, all right, I'm going all in. Cool, you're utilizing exogenous ketones as a strategic tool. You're on a well-formulated ketogenic diet, and you're moving your body, meaning you're doing some type of resistance training, high-intensity interval training. That is where you're going to get your best bang for your buck. But just like when you're going upstairs, sometimes it takes walking from step 1 to step 2, step 3. Sometimes if you're excited and ambitious, you could just jump up to the third stair.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you saying that, because that's really what it did for me, right? It opened up the door. I say it's the gateway to the ketogenic lifestyle. When I found out what these did to my brain, and my brain actually just lit up on fire, And I just had this tunnel vision focus. That's when I really started to shift and say, you know what? Well, what is this ketogenic lifestyle about? And that's how we really utilize it, a tool with our clients and customers. It helps them create that shift. Can you give them an understanding, why exogenous ketones? One of the things I felt in the very beginning was I didn't crave the carbs and sugars anymore. And I didn't necessarily, when I got into the ketogenic lifestyle, have what I hear around everybody's, terminology is the keto flu. I never really had a lull in energy. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of potential there in terms of keto adaptation when taken into context. So, for example, one of the reasons why people experience the keto flu, if you don't know what the keto flu is, it's basically this it's almost, imagine like a hangover mixed with like extra headache, mixed with like dehydration and confusion. Oftentimes when you're switching from being a super big carb burner to now switching to a ketogenic lifestyle where you're now trying to become more fat adapted, you typically go through this period of keto adaptation or this keto flu period. And part of that can be electrolytes, imbalances in electrolytes where you need to replenish those. Part of it could be your body switching over. Now imagine sitting on a fence. That's what the keto flu really depicts. So you're not really on the one side of the fence where your body's really good at utilizing glucose and carbohydrates, but you're not full, you don't have enough ketones being produced yet. You're not super fat adapted, so you're not fully over on the other end of the spectrum. So you're kind of sitting on the fence and it's uncomfortable. And that's really what the keto flu is. So that's a period where I think utilizing exogenous ketones in a smart way could help that transition period to kind of bump you over that fence and not really cause you to sit there and be like, all right, cool, you're now running on ketones while you're ramping up fat metabolism through the diet as well.
Yeah, I just opened up the hand raising. So if any of you guys have any questions for Dr. Lowery, please go ahead and raise your hand. I know this is a conversation that is big.
Did I lose you, Vaughn? Are you there?
Oh, hey, sorry about that. I'm sitting here talking to myself. Look, thank you, guys. Thank you for that. And I also opened up the hand raising for anybody down there in the audience that wants to come up and maybe ask a question to Dr. Lowery. I see Celine's coming up, so we'll invite her up. And guys, if we can just keep it to one question, that way we can get through as many as we can. I know Dr. Ryan has another engagement here, pretty soon, so we want to be mindful of his time. So Celine, welcome to the stage.
Thank you very much, and great conversation so far. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. What made me join this room was that I did a self-study with exogenous ketones a few months back. So I took 4 different ones, took them for a week, didn't take them for a week, and so on, and measured my levels of ketosis and glucose, just because I had always been curious about what's being promised, and I wanted to see what the results are for myself and to share with my community online. What I really, for me, saw that 3 out of the 4, there was just nothing. I mean, it was like taking a placebo. And you mentioned earlier how obviously not all ketones are made the same. And for me, they were like in the pill form. Does that, or is there, maybe you don't have the right background for that, but I've been wondering, it is a bit in the drug space, like medicinal space. So is there no regulations around what can be called a ketone or labeled a ketone? Is that just a free for all, I don't know, candy bar or chips?
Great question. Yeah, there's, just like with anything, there's very little regulation around it. I think that's where rooms like this, and there needs to be a lot more education surrounding it. But yeah, literally you could take, because at the beginning, when exogenous ketones first came out, people were marketing raspberry ketones. And the only thing that's similar about raspberry ketones and the exogenous ketones we're talking about here, which is beta hydroxybutyrate, is just the fact that they're both called quote unquote ketones, but they're completely different. But yeah, there's zero regulation around it. Unfortunately, the keto pills have come in and they're running rampant on Amazon. I've tried to get in touch with Amazon to try and get them, and they're pulling some off every single day. But they're just marketing to people like crazy because their margin on that pill, to put it in perspective, their margin on that bottle, if they're charging $100, I guarantee you they're making 95. Like it probably costs them $5 to make that entire bottle, which is absolutely nuts. But that's why they can spend $80 acquiring a customer, and that's why they're in your text messages, they're in your face, they're all over Facebook, and there's zero regulation around it. And then when one company gets shut down because people report it to the BBB, then it's Keto Fast, then it's Keto Slim, then it's Keto Quick, then it's just, they just spin up a million different companies. So it's tough, but hopefully we do get some more regulation.
Celine, did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely did. Thank you. Because I had been wondering if there were, because many like foods are like so like FDA approved and then like all these regulations, but it feels like with these pills, it's just whatever.
I think they kind of call it the wild, wild west right now, right? And that's kind of where it's at. So Celine, thank you for your question. Raquel, you're next. Good afternoon.
Oh, yeah, good afternoon too. My question is about the perfect keto exogenous ketones, because as Celine said, I took them and it was like taking anything.
Hey, great question. Yeah, I mean, like I said, 99% of them use a mixed form. And here's the other thing to keep in mind, and this is where companies don't also understand how ketones work. They just put together formulas and they don't really understand it. There's different, like, so not only are there different isomers, so there's this D and L form, right? I think the one you mentioned uses D and L. So immediately half of what they claim is useless, right? It's having zero effect. Now, the other thing that people don't understand is ketone uptake is directly proportional to how fast ketones appear in the blood, right? So if you get ketones that rapidly appear in the blood, they're rapidly getting taken up by the brain. Now, there's different ketone salts, and this is where it gets super granular. There's ketones that are bound to sodium, there are ketones that are bound to calcium, and there are ketones that are bound to magnesium, all of which have different absorption levels. And a lot of times people freak out when they see hot ketones bound to sodium, but guess what? Ketones bound to sodium get rapidly taken up. They're the quickest. They spike very, very quickly. But most companies are afraid to educate on, hey, sodium's not the enemy. It's not that big of an issue. So what do? They put a ton of BHB calcium, which is very slow.
If you guys have any questions, drop it down in the comments below, and I'll bring it over to Dr. Ryan. Thank you guys for joining.
Too much sodium. So it never has this high peak. It's this very slow and not very prolonged bump in your ketone levels, and that's why you're likely seeing nothing when you're testing on ketones.
Yeah, it has magnesium, sodium, and calcium to it. So.
Right, and it just really depends on the ratio, and that's where you don't really know how much they're putting in each one. The only way to do that is to look at like the amount of sodium, the amount of calcium, and the amount of magnesium, because they have to list that. But a lot of them have a higher amount of calcium and magnesium because everyone's afraid of sodium, and those absorb a lot slower. Like I think ones that are higher in sodium are good because they're faster. They're faster absorbing, and you're going to get a greater uptake.
This one have everything like the same, like the same amounts, the same ratio. Should that be okay, or you should rather to have something that has more sodium?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, sodium would be higher than calcium and magnesium just for increased uptake.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raquel. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming up on stage and asking that question. David, you're next. How you doing? Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you? So the question I had was, if you're already in like pretty deep ketosis and you're pretty keto adapted, I was kind of wondering like I was kind of thinking about this after the conversation last night, like what the additional benefits of the exogenous ketones are if you've already got a pretty decent amount of ketones floating around in your blood. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Great question. You're in a great lab to learn more about that as well. in that instance, ketones need to be looked at as a tool, right? So I'm on a ketogenic diet. I utilize exogenous ketones. I use them strategically as pre-workout. So for me, like instead of having a bunch of caffeine and having a bunch of carbs that most pre-workouts do, I have ketones. So I get a huge ketone boost because I know during my workout, I'm going to get a ton of uptake by my tissue. Right. So for me, it's just kind of like an extra boost, and I feel great going into my workout. And then oftentimes I use them in the middle of the day. Like if I have, especially when I'm fasting and like not eating for prolonged periods of time, I use them in the middle of the day as kind of like a pick me up rather than drinking an energy drink. Like I have something as like hey, I need a little bump in my ketone level, something to get me going. That's how I use them. But I do think the approach for someone who's eating a ketogenic diet and in ketosis is likely far different from someone who is maybe eating carbohydrates or even just low carb and not fully in ketosis. And then the last thing I'll say about that I think needs a ton more research on, but it's interesting nonetheless, is we did a study with our colleagues at Auburn University in animals. And basically we looked at brown adipose tissue, brown fats, and we looked at metabolism. And what we found was there's in a linear fashion, we looked at animals that were fed a Western diet, animals that were fed a Western diet plus exogenous ketones, a ketogenic diet, and then a ketogenic diet plus exogenous ketones. And we didn't expect to see a difference. Our hypothesis was that there would be no difference with a ketogenic diet and then the ketogenic diet plus exogenous ketones. But we did. We saw a greater increase in brown adipose tissue and a greater increase in metabolism in the animals that were fed the exogenous ketones in addition to the ketogenic diet. So it's interesting. There's a lot more needs to be done there, but there's some inclination that there may be a semi-additive effect.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks. That is really interesting. And I actually remember reading about the brown adipose in the book that you guys kind of talked about a little bit. So that's cool. But yeah, thanks again.
Thank you, David. We appreciate you coming up, asking that question. Brian, we got you up next, brother. How you doing? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on the stage. Thanks for everything that you guys do. I'm newer to Clubhouse, been on a couple weeks, very addictive, and I've learned a lot in 2 weeks. And for the last 8 months, I've been doing what I thought was keto. Well, again, it's probably more low carb than anything, and I've been watching my carb intake with Carb Manager, got a Carb Mojo meter, and again, how long does it take you to get in the keto? Again, the one thing I struggle at, the proteins are fine, and I keep the carbs, the total carbs less than 35 a day is what I look for. It's getting those fats, and how important is, the fats, the proteins, the carb, the macros. Again, learning so much from Vaughn and Judith and all the people on Clubhouse. I'm very addicted, and thanks for all you're doing. This is Brian. I'm finished speaking.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate that. Dr. Ryan, how would exogenous ketones play a role in Brian's journey and where he's at right now?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, Brian, I clicked on your bio. Thank you for your service. That's amazing. And I appreciate all the work you're doing that you're on the board of. That's absolutely incredible work. So I think there's a lot of questions that you had about like just getting started, right? I think there's a lot to understand, and I think you're in the right room. I would highly suggest keep tapping into this room. The Keto for the Soul group is absolutely incredible for saying like, hey, how do you get started on your journey? For people like Vaughn, it started with exogenous ketones transitioning into a ketogenic lifestyle. For me, it started with me failing for 3 months and drinking heavy cream and thinking that's the only thing that I could have and feeling absolutely miserable. I think you have an amazing group here that can help you avoid the challenges that I faced. So it can help through that adaptation process. But the main thing I would say is you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of information out there. Find anchors, and I'm more than happy to be one of those anchors for you. If you need more help of like, where do I start with my macros? Like, do I need to just be eating less than 25 grams of carbohydrates because that's what some guy on YouTube told me? One, the answer is no. And two is reach out to me and I'll do whatever I can to try and help you. I answer all my DMs personally. That's one thing I make sure our team does not do. is I want to make sure I'm there for people. So shoot me a DM if you have any specific questions on like getting started on your keto journey. I'm more than happy to help.
Absolutely. Thanks, Doctor. I've followed a lot of you on Instagram. It's something I've been on for 6 years. I've never taken advantage of it, so I'm still learning Instagram. But thank you for your offer, and I will definitely reach out to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Like Dr. Ryan said, thank you for your service. And we just appreciate you always showing up and coming up on stage and just sharing some of your journey and where you're going. We appreciate that. Terry, good afternoon. How are you?
Hello, and nice to meet you, Vaughn. And thank you for such a great room. I'm definitely going to follow you around now.
Well, thank you very much.
Dr. Lowery, I do follow you. I've been drinking the Prove It ketones for about a year, and I am also a promoter. So I guess what my question is when I get people who get started and maybe they are a month or two into drinking their ketones and they have a lot of success in the beginning and then it just kind of stalls. And I do have the conversation about needing to adjust fats and proteins because as they become more fat adapted, things do change. I'm never quite sure which way I should go, proteins first or fats first. And is there a way to more use the ketone supplements, the exogenous ketones, to help them get out of that kind of stuck?
Great question. So here's kind of what my recommendation would be. One, I think for a lot of people, like I said earlier, ketones can be an avenue into this ketogenic lifestyle, and really starting at that first step. I think that's great, and I love that you're advocating for that. I think for most people, they've never experienced like true satiety or fullness, and ketones can provide that for a lot of people. Right? Think about when I grew up. Like it was. I actually wrote a paper on this. I've actually never admitted this anywhere else, and I don't. It's not that I'm hiding it. It never has come up. I actually wrote a paper. I need to talk about this more. Jacob and I wrote a paper about how breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And I wrote this about 10 years ago. And it was one of the first studies I ever published because at the time, the data showed like breakfast is super important, blah, blah, blah. Obviously now, since then, things have changed. And I think we grew up in this environment where it was taught like, oh, you need to have breakfast or else your metabolism's going to slow down and all this stuff. And that's just not true anymore. We've showed that over and over again. And so I think for most people, like even if they just quote unquote skip breakfast and have exogenous ketones to start, and then you're working with them and saying, hey, I would recommend start with protein first, especially if they're coming from eating a high amount of carbohydrates, because the last thing you want to do is have someone who is eating on standard American diet and say, hey, bump those healthy fats up. Well, they're eating a ton of carbohydrates and then they're just throwing extra fats on top of it. Probably not a great idea. That's like the equivalent of like having like a Big Mac. Well, instead, what I would say is, hey, you're utilizing exogenous ketones. Let's start pulling down a lot of those processed carbohydrates. So for me, like my teenage Ryan, what that would have been for me is, instead of eating the entire sleeve of Oreos, maybe eat 2 Oreos, right? That's a win. That's a huge win. Ideally, I'm working away from the Oreos, but that's where I would start with someone is like, hey, let's pull down the processed carbohydrates, bump up good sources of protein, because I think most people under-eat protein rather than over-eat protein. And then once we get a handle on that, then we can start kind of work within the fats.
Perfect. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate you for being here and asking that question. Yeah, it's funny you say that, Dr. Ryan, because that's exactly what the Keto Nat did for me in the beginning of my journey. I was one of those 10, 11 o'clock at night, get up off the couch, go in there and eat an Oreo. Next thing you know, the whole bag of Oreos is gone, and I'm blaming it on the kids the next day. Oh, who ate the Oreos? It's the kids. And I found that I would start to do that, and I would only get up and I would eat 1 or 2, and I would be satiated. I'd be good. I wouldn't have the rest of them. I wouldn't want them. I wouldn't crave them anymore. So for me, that was a huge shift in my journey, for that. And then I started realizing, wow, you know what? I can utilize this as a tool. And then I would get up when I have that craving, and I would have an uncaffeinated, we have a cacao flavor and it's chocolate flavor. I would use that instead of actually getting into the Oreos or the cookies or anything. So I really started to create that shift from that point forward. And it just led me to where I'm at today. I want to go ahead and take this minute to reset the room. We're in here with Keto for the Soul. It's absolutely amazing club that was put together by the amazing Judith that we have on stage with us right now. I want to thank her for putting this club together and allowing us to have these amazing talks inside the club here. I know it's the first and the fastest growing keto club here on Clubhouse. So if you guys are not following the club, hit the little green Monopoly house at the very top there. Make sure you're following the club. Look at the bio, and you'll see all the rooms that we have, continuous rooms in there. Also, make sure you're following Dr. Ryan and Judith and the people on stage here, and make sure you're clicking on always on the little bell next to it, because what that'll do, that'll ping you into the rooms that we're jumping around into, sharing knowledge, educating others, also getting educated ourselves. And I want to take this minute to go ahead and invite anybody else up on stage that may have a question about the exogenous ketones. And I know we talk about keto a lot, but I thought it was very important to bring the conversation and put it in the spotlight a little bit about exogenous ketones, because there's so many misconceptions out there to what they are and what they are not. So I want to go to Michelle right now and open up the mic and go ahead. And any questions or comments, Michelle? We appreciate having you up here. Good afternoon.
Hey, thanks for inviting me up. Hi, Dr. Ryan. Hi, Vaughn. I do have a question. I use the Keto S Pro for my husband. He has TBI from his military service. He's not low carb, he's kind of low carb than he was, but he'll only drink it once a day, and he mixes it with cranberry juice. Is that going to affect like what he needs for his brain? I know the MCT is going to be good for his brain too, but is that little bit of sugar with it going to affect how the therapeutic benefits of it?
That's the first time I've ever heard that. That's interesting. I've never heard of mixing the protein with cranberry juice. That's fascinating. No, it wouldn't. And there's actually some new research coming out on this. I think in the sports world, that's kind of where exogenous ketones will find a nice home, is like there is this cool mix of having like, and I'm not recommending this for most people, I'm saying like sports world or like TBI world, if it's like a must, because Dr. Mary Newport's a perfect example. Her husband ate sandwiches and chips, but would drink coconut oil. Now, for most people, that wouldn't make sense. Like probably not the best if your goal is body composition. He didn't care about body composition. He had severe Alzheimer's, and like that's what allowed him to stand up and function in the day, because that's what she needed. That's all she had available to her 15 years ago, right? So in that case, if that's the only way he's going to get it in, great, he's getting it in. I think the ketones will still get taken up and utilized by his brain. He's getting in good quality sources of MCTs, good quality sources of protein and amino acids. I wouldn't sweat it too much if that's the only way he's getting it in. Like my grandpa, he'll drink exogenous ketones and he'll have a piece of garlic bread. Do I try and give him a lecture on, Grandpa, this is how you should be eating keto? No, because I know that's not how he's going to do it. But I know he's getting a benefit from ketones being taken up and delivered to his brain.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And that's how we utilize it with our customers too. I have people tell me, well, I can never do keto and I'm not going to drink that drink because I drink alcohol all the time. And I say, I don't care. Mix it in your alcohol, whatever you got to do to get it in your system. And then what happens is you start to see the magic happen. You start to see the shifts coming. So, if that's the only way he can drink it, Michelle, definitely get it in there. And, slowly but surely, I believe you'll start to see him make those shifts and he'll come around. And I think that's truly what this is about here. So creating the shift for people to be able to become the best version of themselves. And I know we use the exogenous ketones, Keto Nat, for that. And I've had tremendous success with it. Mike, good afternoon, brother. How are you? Great to see you.
Doing well, Vaughn. How are you? Hope to see you soon. Hopefully we can get connected sometime here soon in the future. And if you guys haven't pulled a refresh, since you're on stage with Dr. Ryan Lowery, I went ahead and updated my photo there to honor him as well. It's been a while since I've seen that. Dr. Ryan Lowery, utilizing exogenous ketone, anything about the ketogenic diet. But like as we went on, I got educated in education that I'm taking from Dr. Ryan Lowery for the last 3 years now, mostly, along with a lot of other doctors out there as well in the space. I know you touched on the right key about the type of ketone being the right key of the body, but I also wanted you to touch on, if you would, like the importance of some of the other things in it, like the B12, the fermented leucine, and the CMed 100.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. Great to see you again. I think with there's important things when it comes to formulation and you're utilizing exogenous ketones. Just to keep in mind, most people and this is just going to be a general discussion on different forms of vitamins, different forms of ketones, and this could be even broader to just overall supplements. But let me just put things in perspective. Vitamin B12 is amazing. There's tons of benefits of vitamin B12. 99% of supplements that utilize vitamin B12 use something known as cyanocobalamin. And yes, it kind of sounds like cyanide because there's a very small amount. Probably don't want to consume vitamin B12 that use cyanocobalamin in high amounts. Probably not a great idea. The actual bioavailable form of vitamin B12 is something known as methylcobalamin, the methylated form of vitamin B12. Why do most people use cyanocobalamin over methylcobalamin? Same reason why most companies use DLBHB over the actual just bioavailable DBHB. Methylcobalamin, and I know this because I've seen purchase orders for it. Methylcobalamin is $5,000 per kilo. Right? If you're buying a kilogram of material, methylcobalamin costs $5,000 just to buy 1 kilogram of material. Cyanocobalamin is $25. So yeah, if you're a company that's trying to make a keto pill with a 95% margin, does it make sense to use cyanocobalamin or methylcobalamin? They're going to use cyanocobalamin, and so I think using bioavailable forms of vitamins like P5P is the bioavailable form of vitamin B6. Methylcobalamin is the bioavailable form of vitamin B12. Just look for those things. And they all have benefits when properly dosed and used in the right form, but there's just a lot of education that people miss that we can really benefit from.
Mike, was that good? I know Mike works a lot, so he might. Awesome.
Yeah, I have about 10 minutes left of work, and I'm trying to get this in. So thank you, Dr. Ryan. Thank you, Vaughn, for having this room.
Thank you, Mike. And what I really like to see here is I like to see that Dr. Lowery doesn't fall off course too much. I like his jackets in both picture there, right? He's real hip. So I love that, Dr. Ryan. Kevin, Coach E, how you doing, brother? Welcome to the stage.
All is well. Thank you for having me up. I had I'm doing a little study on ketones, and it's like a little individual study. I don't have a lab like Dr. Ryan has or anything, but I doing just a little study, and basically I've taken 9 different ketones and tested them and all that good stuff. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but as I speak about ketones, sometimes I usually get the comment or the phrase, and just curious as to how you guys respond to that. Is when your body produces ketones naturally, why do we need ketones? So I'm just curious to see how you would respond to that, because by me doing the study, and I'm a ketone advocate, I call them a keto energy drink. So just to preface it by saying that, I call them keto energy drink. But what is your response when people tell you that?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Your body should be in a constant state of ketosis. I think that's great. If you're on a ketogenic diet, the problem is most people who are utilizing exogenous ketones are probably coming in or like Vaughn said, shifting from saying, I'm eating a ton of carbohydrates, but I want to shift to this lifestyle, or I don't even know what it feels like to be in ketosis. So that's kind of like the in for them. Now, for people who are on a ketogenic diet, kind of like what I said before, there's potential added benefits. There's, like I talked about with the brown adipose tissue, that's really interesting. For me, I use it more so from a pre-workout standpoint. But there's actually, I don't know if it's published yet. I have to find it, but there's a researcher named Dr. Lillian. She actually did research in a population. I have to be careful here. I think it might have been diabetics, or maybe just people who are insulin resistant or obese. And what she found was really interesting. She basically found that putting them on a ketogenic diet had a little bit of a benefit, but she took them and put them on a ketogenic diet and added in exogenous ketones in her study and found that they had a better response and an additive effect in that instance. I haven't seen that published yet. I've only seen her present it at a conference. I'm waiting for that paper to come out, but she found that there was something unique in that instance about the supplementing with the exogenous ketones versus making them. Not that it should replace it by any means, but that there was this additive effect as far as body composition. So I don't know the full details on it, but I just saw it presented at a conference and thought it was really interesting. So that would kind of be how I would address those issues.
Okay. What are your thoughts on people who say that that drinking exogenous ketones suppresses your ability to make them yourself? And I'm putting this out here because I know this is things that I get. So I'm just putting it out there so that you can get some good response.
I love this question. I love this question. And that was my biggest fear, honestly, when I first started. Like, we've been studying exogenous ketones for a little over 5 years, before they were even available on the market. Still when they were absolutely disgusting, as a ketone ester was the only way that you can get them. Ketone salts weren't even a thing. And so we started studying this. I've tested it in our lab, but there's also been tons of research papers studying on this. And the answer is yes, you are absolutely right, but it depends. The devil's in the dose. So when it comes to ketone esters, you will see that because ketone esters are extremely potent, right? If you've ever had I don't know if anyone's ever tried a ketone ester. They bump you really high. They're super expensive. It's like $40 per serving. They taste like your great-great-great-grandfather's vodka that he's been saving from his great-great-grandfather. So it's pretty rough to get down the hatch. But if you ever tried it, it will bump you to like 2. Like if I'm on a ketogenic diet and I'm at 1, it could bump me well over 3.54 millimoles, right? People think that's great. Not necessarily. Like Jacob and I have tested this out, and like if you go too high, you can get like this drunken feeling. Like I remember I was about to do a workout with Jacob one time, and we took the ketone ester, and we got to like 4 or 5 millimoles, and like I couldn't, like it felt like I was tipsy. Like I couldn't see straight. And so it's not that more is better. There's this sweet spot in the middle. But what we see in the research is anything over around 3 to 3.5 millimoles is when your body will release insulin, which is where that happens, where your body will stop producing its own ketones, and your body will shut down that process to avoid ketoacidosis, right? Which again is very, very, very far away. 15 millimoles where ketoacidosis starts, but your body's recognizing, hey, ketones are really high. They really shouldn't be this high. So that's really only when that happens. For me, like if I take exogenous ketone salts, I might go from 1 millimole to 1.8 to 2.0. I've never personally with the salts ever hit 3.5 or above. But I guess it's depending upon the individual.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach E. And that is a great question because it is something that I've heard recently. You know, taking exogenous ketones are going to stop the production of your natural ketones. So thank you, Dr. Ryan, for that. Dr. Ryan, I also would like to ask a question. Where do you see this with like TBIs and things like that? How can exogenous ketones be utilized with certain scenarios, TBIs and head traumas?
Yeah, I think there's a huge application there. It's like I said earlier, I think it's one of the areas I'm most excited about where I think there's enormous potential. Because think about this, I actually just did a video on YouTube about how I think some of the quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson took a huge hit and suffered CTE or a concussion, probably has some degree of CTE. Patrick Mahomes, even though it might have helped us in the Super Bowl a little bit, who knows? But I made this whole video about how if I were them, what would I be doing to kind of combat the inflammation that's definitely in the brain after hits like that? And I look forward to the day when ketones are on the sideline of every single football game, every single UFC match, because here's what's going on, just in a high-level, simple view. Your brain takes this trauma. Your brain shakes around inside of the skull, and you get this little micro trauma. Well, whether it's a big hit and you get absolutely knocked unconscious, or it's just a small hit and you get a little helmet-to-helmet play, there's inflammation that's going on, which causes temporarily this insulin resistance in the brain. So your brain is no longer, the minute you take that hit, your brain's not taking up and utilizing glucose and carbohydrates. So your brain is starving for energy. It's absolutely starving and saying, give me energy. But it's not able to take up glucose and carbohydrates. And there's a study back in 2014, and they did this in animals, and this is brutal, but this is how research is done, but they basically dropped weights on animals' heads. That's how they kind of do that research. It's sad, but that's how they measure TBI in animals. And what they found was the receptors that take up and utilize ketones rapidly increase right after that impact. So it's almost if our bodies are pretty damn smart. Our body goes, damn, I need a lot of energy, but yet these tunnels that take up and utilize glucose and carbohydrates are blocked. They're not working well. There's inflammation going on. However, we need to increase transport and uptake of these other tunnels that can take up and utilize ketones. And that's what your brain does. And the problem is we're just not providing it. We're not giving it. And so what happens is this chronic starvation throughout the game, after the game, the next week. And this is one of the largest factors that I think is contributing to the CTE problem that we're seeing and that we will continue to see for years to come.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ryan. And, that's really what I see out of this too. I really see this exogenous ketones, specifically Ketone, utilized in different forms. Remember, I say this all the time, utilize it as a tool. I've said this from day one, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, it's not a weight loss product. It's not something that all of a sudden you're going to start burning body fat for fuel. What it does is it helps enhance things like mental clarity. It helps enhance your energy. So many times that I've utilized this product with people and they're like, you know what? I haven't taken a nap in like 4 days, and I used to always come home from work and take a nap. Now I'm playing with my kids in the afternoon. And to me, that lights me up. You know why? Because they're giving quality time with their families now. And now all of a sudden I know they're starting to see a shift, and all that's going to happen is they're going to continue to get better. So I want to repeat myself when I say this, and I've said this from day one, this is not a weight loss product, right? Will it enhance, your ability to burn fat? Well, because you're going to change things. Your diet's going to change. You're going to be satiated. You're not going to eat as much. You're going to be more energetic. You're going to want to work out. You're going to use it as a pre-workout. So for me, it's about utilizing it as a tool. Judith, I see you up on stage. If you wanted to come on off of mute and say anything to Dr. Ryan, or if you had a question. I know you're usually working around this time, so there you go.
Yeah, I'm actually at work right now, but I am just loving the conversation. I appreciate both of you for just being here and just having it, because it needs to be said. So I'm just being a student learning.
Thank you, Judith. We appreciate you. Also, Dr. Ryan, where do you see the future of Ketone going from here? Like what's around the corner? Anything new coming out? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. We're continuously studying in our lab just how to increase the bioavailability of ketones, right? How do we make it so you don't need to consume as much to get the same effective amount? What are things that work synergistically with it to get that same bump? Other forms of ketones are something that's been super interesting that I've been studying for the last 3 years. So there's a lot. And the coolest part about this is I think it's garnishing international awareness, like expansion internationally, and understanding as long as the right messaging is there, this can have such a profound impact in terms of metabolic health as a whole for the entire world, right? Because as long as we avoid and over-educate this keto pill scam nonsense and utilizing ketones and just drinking eating Big Macs and drinking large sodas and think we're going to lose 1 million pounds in 2 days. As long as we over-educate on that and talk about what their purpose is, and hopefully get people up that stair or that ladder that I talked about of like introducing them, allowing them to adopt the lifestyle, and then fully immersing yourself in this lifestyle that involves movement and better dietary, better nutrition, and utilizing this as a tool, I think it has the ability to impact the world on a very, very, very big scale.
Yes, thank you for that. Kathleen, welcome to the stage. This will be the last question. I want to be mindful of Dr. Ryan's time. I know he has some prior engagements. So Kathleen, welcome to the stage. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks so much for allowing me to ask my questions. I actually have two. I hope that's okay. One of them is, so I'm pretty new to taking NAT. I absolutely love the energy that it's giving me. And I definitely, today, for example, I actually didn't drink one this morning and felt that brain fog that I used to feel. And so I'm definitely seeing the difference. One thing I wanted to ask, and that goes for anybody who really has a suggestion, I am having a little bit of difficulty with the taste, and in terms of thinking long-term about taking Keto NAT as just on a regular basis, 2 a day. It's I don't know how to make it taste better, or if I can mix it with something, or if anybody, you know, if you have any suggestions for that. And then my second question is actually, I heard people asking about TBI, and I was doing a little bit of research on Keto NAT and saw some papers about its potential benefits in Parkinson's patients. And my mother has Parkinson's, and I was wondering if you had any knowledge of any progress on the research in Parkinson's patients, or anything like that I could potentially bring to her and to her doctors to see if Keto NAT would actually be even helpful for her. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll address the Parkinson's one. I'll let Vaughn talk about taste stuff. Yeah, so one, I just have to preface this, I'm not giving you medical advice or anything, like, and you just have to be careful with how you talk about this, because that's bordering over into the medical side of things. Inside of the Ketogenic Bible, we talked about the research that's going on. Here's the thing. It's an area that I'm super passionate about: Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, and Parkinson's. All of them have very similar challenges that are going on in the brain. And so there's amazing data on the ketogenic diet for Parkinson's. They've seen even in 28 days showing that a ketogenic diet can improve what they call the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale. And there's newer stuff that's coming out. There's animal studies that I can send you showing benefits of exogenous ketones in animals. We've done some stuff at our lab looking at cognitive tracking, because oftentimes one of the things that you don't see in Parkinson's patients is this inability to focus on things. Well, if you're providing an alternative source of fuel, we've seen short-term improvements in those things. So shoot me a DM and I can send you over that information. If you don't have the Ketogenic Bible, I can shoot you over all those references so you can take a look at them.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll send you a DM. Thanks.
Yeah, Kathleen. And as far as the flavor goes, you can shoot me a DM, but you can mix it with anything. If you want a little bubbly, you can mix it with something like a Zevia, or on that side of it. If you wanted to even shoot something like a little bit of Mio in there to change the flavor of it. Listen, somebody on stage was saying a little bit earlier, her husband mixes it with cranberry juice. I say this: get it in the way you can. And watch the magic happen. I say, knowing the benefits that I've gotten out of it, and all the people that I've been able to help, if it tasted like dirt, I would continue to take it, just because I know the benefits that I'm getting. That being said, none of our stuff tastes like dirt. I think absolutely every flavor is amazing. But listen, everybody has their own taste, but that's the greatest thing too, is we're always creating new flavors. There's new things coming out. So, get with me, and if we need to send you a couple new flavors to try something different to see what you you want to get on your next order, that's perfectly fine. We can go ahead and do that too. And that goes for anybody. If you have any more information or you want any more information on this, slide into my DMs, let me know. We can get you the information that you need. Dr. Ryan is always open and constantly answering his DMs, which I truly appreciate. But we're here to serve you guys, and that's the one thing I would like to really preference here, right? How can we better serve you? That's what this is truly about. It's about giving you a voice and allowing you to ask the questions, that you may be hearing circling around out there in different spaces. So that's why I created this room. It's just to bring light to a conversation that I believe that a lot of people kind of hide behind the door on. They're kind of scared to talk about it. And I say, why are we scared to talk about this amazing product that's helping people, just become better each and every day? So, if you guys are open for it, and maybe Dr. Ryan would come back maybe in another week or two, and we have this conversation again and open this up where, we can just educate the masses and not only on exogenous ketones, but how exogenous ketones typically lead people into a ketogenic lifestyle. And I really think what Dr. Ryan said there a few minutes ago, listen, we're definitely not anybody's doctor here. We always suggest anybody working with their medical, practitioner with any supplement that you're taking. If you're taking a protein shake, whatever it is you're taking, and if you're working with a doctor, make sure you let them know this is what you're doing. And then also, when it comes to something like Parkinson's and the things that doctor was talking about the research on the ketogenic diet, right? We're talking more on the diet side there. If exogenous ketones will bridge that gap to help people get into that lifestyle, I feel like, hey, give it a shot and see what it'll do for you. That would be what I would say to anybody out there. I say, give it a run, see what it does for you. And then, you move forward from there. So Dr. Ryan, any last words? I want to thank you for joining us today. I really do appreciate your time, and your giving heart is just amazing.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I hope you guys took something away from today, and we'll definitely jump back on and talk more about it because I think it's an amazing topic. So I appreciate you, appreciate everyone in this room, and look forward to continuing the discussion.
And also, if you guys haven't done it already, make sure you go to ketogenic.com and check Dr. Ryan's, keto.com is absolutely amazing. I'm part of the keto course that he has in there. It's been great. The summits that he holds are absolutely just educational and can change your life. And if you guys don't know, he is a co-author of the Ketogenic Bible. One of the first things I bought when I got into this lifestyle and found that book was that book there. And I'm not the best reader. I don't read all the time. In the past, I haven't been the best reader, but that's a book that I really dove into and really enjoyed. So thank you guys for joining us. We really do appreciate you. We'll set up another room like this. We'll talk some more exogenous ketones. And until then, we love each and every one of you guys. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you guys. We appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. That was a little bit of exogenous ketone talk with Dr. Ryan Lowery. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And we will catch you next time. Until then, adios.